I was stuck on a naval base in Sri Lanka in Trincomalee. And I remember you telling me you had spoken to Ed Brooks and you were about to go to Bahamas to the Cape Eleuthera Institute and start your postdoc. Was it?
Yeah.
And then you were there, and it was just amazing to watch that happen.
Yeah, it was a great journey. You know, the undergrad at James Cook was brilliant. I started volunteering for PhD students at UQ in Brisbane, plus all the graduate students at James Cook. I developed very robust, strong relationships with professors, and I feel that going back to university as a slightly more mature student, I had a little bit more life experience and perhaps interpersonal skills than, you know, an 18-year-old fresh out of school that had left home for the first time. So those undergraduate days really teed it up. And I think I remember my grade point average in my first year of undergraduate were like passes and credits. And then second year was credits and distinctions. Third year was distinctions. And then I got the perfect GPA of 7.0 in my honours year, which was the fourth year. But I remember the structure at James Cook University was you had to be invited to submit a research proposal for an honours project that was peer reviewed by internal professors and staff. And I was working with, I wanted to work with Jamie Seymour, who was or is one of the world's leading marine toxicologists, and Michael Kingsford, who at the time was the head of the marine and tropical biology program at James Cook University. And there was nothing more confronting than realizing that after you've done your 3 years of undergrad to all of a sudden go into your first postgraduate degree where you have to develop your own set of ecological questions and design field methods to answer those questions using, you know, quantitative approaches and using those math skills I've learned 3 years previous. The step from undergrad to honours was harrowing, and I remember feeling a lot of the time, you know, I can't do this. You know, I only went to go and do my undergrad, and I became so absorbed with it. But I was so lucky in that I had this amazing honours project where we were studying cleaning ecology on the Great Barrier Reef and the sort of demographics and the community structure of clients that visit cleaning stations. And I went and spent 6 weeks at Osprey Reef on this beautiful liveaboard dive vessel as their guest scientist. So all of a sudden I was, you know, 27, 28 years old, and I was studying manta rays and sharks at an oceanic atoll reef. I felt very much out of my depth, but those formative years of learning field science was what really set everything up. And it was in 2008 that I realized, hang on a minute, this is something that I think I'm quite good at and something that I definitely want to pursue. There was a great sense of catharsis and even contentment knowing that all of these struggles and challenges and difficult academic pathways to get there were actually making a valid and viable contribution to a global understanding of how threatened ecosystems function. And that's what really kept me going. It was bigger than me. It wasn't about me and my goals and my academic career. It was about contributing to the literature and sharing results of studies that hopefully would benefit the conservation and management of these environments. So the PhD was a natural step, and I was married at the time to a wonderful woman called Michelle, and she was offered a job in Perth. So we travelled over to Perth, and I remember I spent some time at Lizard Island Research Station in the Northern Great Barrier Reef at the end of my honours degree, volunteering for a master's student called Valeria Komyakova, who was working with Jeff Jones, who's a very well-known fish ecologist from James Cook. And I spent about 5 or 6 weeks there over a Christmas period. And I remember there was a chap that turned up that had a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a gunslinger, a bit of a sort of hard ass. by the name of Mark Meakin. And I'd obviously heard of Mark through reading his papers. He was a shark and ray biologist with specific interest mainly in whale sharks. And he and I really connected and bonded at that time in Lizard Island. So when I moved over to Perth, I understood that he was working at the Australian Institute of Marine Science at the University of Western Australia. So I got a job straight away as a research assistant at UWA, and I worked on projects assessing eutrophication of inshore seagrass ecosystems and how farming practices were impacting the nutrient availability in these dense seagrass meadows. And I remember applying or speaking to Mark, and I had a publication that was in preparation at the time. And, I said to Mark, I wanted to do my PhD with him. And he said, look, mate, you've got very little experience. A first class honours is good for an international student, but you really need a publication. So he said, look, why don't you apply for it at Murdoch University, where he had some colleagues. He said, you won't get it, but it's really good practice. So next year, when your publication has been accepted and you have one paper, you'll stand a much higher chance of being awarded the various international postgraduate scholarships that were required to undertake the PhD program. So I applied and I got it. And I think I was one of 3 people out of over 100 applications. And I remember calling Mark saying, hey, man, I got the scholarship. And he was like, well, we better go to work. And I had my full fees waived for 3 years, and I was awarded a stipend. I think it was about $800 a week, which was tax-free at the time. And Mark said, look, I've got 3 projects, the vertical migrations of whale sharks, the spatial ecology of grey reef sharks, or just bread and butter ecology of stingrays. So he asked me to go away, think about it, do a literature review, and then basically pick a project. And when I went away to research these topics, I realized that, whale sharks, there was a little bit of information. Grey reef sharks, there was a little bit of information, but I really struggled with the stingrays because there was just such a lack of data available for these animals. And this was at Ningaloo Reef. And I just figured, there are so many species of ray at Ningaloo. They're obviously contributing something significant because they're all sharing the same habitats and space and time. So I chose this stingray project. And so I started that PhD with Mark in 2009 while living in Perth through Murdoch University, but I had offices at the Australian Institute of Marine Science in the University of Western Australia building. And that's where it all started. And again, the step from honours degree to PhD was again a giant chasm where I felt myself like a bit of a gunslinger and a bit of a James Bond, I've got a first class honours, I've got a publication about to come out, I know what I'm doing. And in reality, I was still a student, and I think I just turned 30 years old by the time I started my PhD in 2009. And again, it was a very rude awakening where I was humbled in that I really didn't know anything. And I was now starting again a new 3-year journey, well, what ended up being a 3-year and 10-month journey, looking at these stingrays at Ningaloo. And then, that was an intense experience in itself. You've been through it, Dom, yourself.
Yeah,
PhDs, they're not easy. It's a very intense process.
No, I remember that feeling of, can I actually do this? Being a regular thought, right up until I think it was less than 3 months to go. I think I was really thinking, am I going to get this done? And then something clicked, and I just went full throttle at it. And with the help of my supervisors, they got me over the line.